she creaks and groans, she knows she has seen this all before. She has seen this all before. She has. Spirit bird, she creaks and groans, she knows she has seen.
Hey guys, I was contacted the other day by a concerned mother, and she was talking about a very important topic, and a topic which actually is probably part of the foundation of the corrosive nature of our society and the relentless attack and destruction of the family unit. Whether that attack is a natural happening or an organised happening is open for debate in many circles. Myself, I see the attack on the family unit as an organised event. It's something that is taking place spiritually and physically to allow for the control of the masses. Remembering, in amongst all of that, the most important resource on planet Earth is the way a human being thinks. Nothing has value inside your economy unless the human being desires or wants it. Likewise, the way a human being behaves is within there. And if humans are predictable, then you can hunt them. All animals you hunt, you must be able to predict what they're going to do. And it's the same with humans. It's just you're not trying to kill them. You're not hunting humans in that sense. You're hunting them to be able to ensnare them inside a somewhat invisible energetic system. A system of owning the consciousness of the person. Now, she contacted me about her son's usage of pornography, and it really made me want to do a video on it. And I feel myself, to be very clear and honest with everyone, you have to sometimes speak of embarrassing aspects of your life. So let's talk about this. And one of the things I saw in there is something I believed as well, that perhaps it's natural for young men to explore and look at these things. And I say this boys will be boys thing. No, I don't agree with that, because here in this country, young boys are not using it. First and foremost, the families are growing up in a single room. You'll have many children and parents living in one room. They don't get a chance to do those things. And even masturbation, etc., it's not so commonly accepted here as it is in the West. In fact, promoted in the West. It's promoted as healthy and normal in the West. Now, I'm not saying it's unhealthy. I'm not saying it's evil or any of that stupidity that people come out with. But what I am saying is it's damaging when done in an uncontrolled way. And many children and young men are underserved by education and society and school, and their minds are not at peace because they've been given things that make their minds unable to find peace without something external taking over them, such as computer games and TV, etc. So it is a natural thing, of course. All species on the planet enjoy sex, the orgasm. They all enjoy it. But we can master that, and we can go through periods of celibacy, and when we do, our creativity is amplified tenfold. Now, animals in general partake in sexual pleasure, but in the most part, they do predominantly use it as a means of reproduction, and females come into heat and males go after that, or sometimes it's the other way around as well. You have different types of relationships. You have even parasitic sexual relationships where the man latches on, tiny version compared to the female, latches on and stays there as a parasite, ultimately providing the sperm and feeding off her nutrients as he does. So there are many unusual ways that we do it, but in the most part in the mammal world, masturbation is only common in human beings and in few primate species. However, sexual pleasure exists. I once had a guy tell me, show me 2 male lions having sex and I'll believe homosexuality is part of God's plan. So I showed him 2 male lions having sex, because it's very not uncommon for male lions to partake in homosexual relations with one another. In fact, there are hundreds of species that do so, and they do it just for pleasure. That's why they do it, sexual pleasure. So it's hardwired into the very natural ways of this planet. But masturbation in our current current modern day time is anything but healthy. First and foremost, there is the use of masturbation for a young man or young woman developing and exploring themselves. And this is a normal, healthy thing that happens inside of ourselves, and it can be a healthy thing so long as it's not abused over and over again. But however, many young men don't know about that. And because we don't teach them about temperance and discipline, and because we put them inside a society which is highly sexed, even from birth, watching TV shows and things like this, which are very high-paced and flashy lights, which children do, which my son will be a no-tech child until he's old enough to have an ability to say no or to discipline it, and his mind is strong enough to understand the dangers of technology. Then I recommend that we start looking at the fact that we don't really know yet with tech what's best, and there's a natural rhythm that our children can grow up with. If you look at Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, they created most of the tech that we see on the planet. Smartphones were mentioned in this email. They were raising tech-free children. Their children were not allowed to have smartphones constantly. They understand the dangers, not just of radiation, but also psychologically and spiritually, the corrosive nature. And it tells you a lot when persons of such influence ban their children from their own products. Now, the smartphone opens up a problem because you, first of all, allow your children to access pornography. Now, masturbation and pornography is just not normal. It's not a healthy combination. And if you really believe it is, then think forward to becoming an old man or an old woman. And you tell me that you want to sit there at your dinner table with your grandchildren and tell them that you used a percentage, and a big percentage for many people. Some people, you're looking at 5 to 10% of your life. These people who masturbate daily to pornography and say it's normal. That you used most of your time so productively that you drew your curtains and switched on your laptop and did what you did. You can't tell me that you feel that that is healthy and normal. And do you want to teach your grandchildren that? Do you want to teach them how to cook, how to drive a car? Do you really want to teach them, oh, by the way, you can also go on these dirty websites where women are used and abused? It's not normal. And I myself, as a young man, I used pornography. Now, my time was different for a while because we were using VHS, like videotapes. We didn't even have DVDs. The DVD was out, but we didn't have one in my family because we were poor. But eventually we got one. So it was DVDs and videos, and then internet came about. But smartphones were never an issue for me. But for your children, to have smartphones is even worse than having a DVD. Because if you have a DVD, for certain the actions in that movie are never real. You know, women are portrayed as sexual objects, the men are always very aggressive, etc. It's just not normal. It's not normal sexual relations. It's just, there's no intimacy. But at least if you're watching a DVD or a video, you are watching an event and then the event will be over. With the internet, the mind is going from video to video to video to video to video to satiate the need for the hit of adrenaline. And that is what our children are getting addicted to. Now, as they do that, of course, they develop a lot of problems. They develop erectile dysfunction being the major one for males, but they develop an unhealthy relationship with sex. Now, ultimately, I think as a society we should never view it as healthy. Pornography is not healthy. It's a tool of Satan at the end of the day. That is what it is, and people can argue all they want. I've used pornography in my life, and it was hard to break the addiction when I was younger. And it even affected, I would dare say, the way I was intimate with people in my life. I would say it had that much of an impact on me. I had an unhealthy relationship with sex due to my use of it. And I hope to the most part that I've healed that now. But I've then lived a life in a celibate mode, or as a more modern term they would say monk mode, as I see some of the NoFap people say. NoFap being a term for people who avoid masturbation to see how creative and powerful they really are. instead of being a subservient version of themselves who needs to close the curtains every day just to get a bit of relief from their body. That temporal relief of the rising orgasm can be achieved permanently by not partaking in that behavior. So when they use a smartphone, they get image after image after image, and it's polluting their minds. It really pollutes them, and it makes them aggressive, and especially when they're young, 13, they're in between space where they're not adult, so they have no way of finding a woman, etc. So by the time some will be in sexual relations at that age, but hopefully most well-raised children will not be. But by the time they reach 16, 18, whatever country in sexual maturity is deemed legal, they've got a horrible relationship with how they perceive women and men as well, for that matter. So what we need to do as a society is stop saying that it's perfectly normal and start teaching our kids this is not fucking normal. This is not normal. These people who are making these, they're not normal people. They're struggling, they're suffering, they're abused, they're used, they're manipulated, and every single one of them who comes out of that industry tells you it's Satan's industry. And it's the only thing you can call it. It's a corrosive, horrible, dark industry. But it's highly addictive. Highly addictive. Now, if we are going to have children who have smartphones, then there are things you can do to tackle it. There are apps. You can buy apps. You can get free apps where you put the app on your child's phone and you have the PIN code, and it can only be uninstalled if you put the PIN code in. You can put apps on there that are managed by your phone and connect to every child's phone in your family. And these apps will pick up on the pornography and get rid of it. It will mean that children can't access it. If, however, someone sends them a video, etc., via WhatsApp or whatever, then of course they still have that. But I hazard to say that it's probably much healthier for their friend to send them one video than for them to go video on a website, because it's destroying the wiring of their brain. But the most important thing for this is we raise our children to understand that being highly sexed is not normal. This is a want of the Luciferian system that we're living in. The more highly sexed you are, the more controllable you are, the weaker you are. You're huntable. Your consciousness is huntable when you are predictable like that. And we're all guilty of it. Me too. We're all guilty of it. And we all get urges. I'm thankful I have a beautiful wife. So I do, as a human being, have urges because I have a young, beautiful wife. She's 10 years younger than me, Fritzy. Thankfully, she finds me to be attractive also. But naturally, I have a son as well, so we all know I express this feeling of love towards my wife and my sometimes my physical urges for things. That's a healthy way to teach it to your children. But what are we going to show them regarding pornography is, or what we're seeing, this lady said she can see her son's attitude changing. For certain you will, because he's got something that's corroding his soul. The boy you knew is slowly being eaten by a Luciferian demonic force, which is pornography. And it's there. And if you don't understand it, it's there not to make profit. Why are there hundreds of websites with millions of free pornography videos? If it's a profit-based industry. It's not a profit-based industry. It's not anymore. It's a control. It's a mind control, spiritual control-based industry. My two sons here have smartphones, and I found naughty material on the phone, and I took both their phones off them immediately. I didn't return them. Children will do it everywhere if they have a carrot dangled in front of them. That's why I researched for a way to block it, and I found these apps. So there are things we can do. There are tools we can use to protect our children. But the most important thing is that society stops saying this is normal. Is it normal for someone's daughter to be paid to have some man abuse and use her on a camera? so as other men can spill the very life force that gives life and creates all that we are onto their blankets every day and use it in that way. For me, that's not a good use of our life force, the very core energy of all we are, the very giving life force, the seed of man. And people are just putting it on their sheets every day. It's just not sacred, not divine to them at all. It's just something, a meaningless something. And it's gone on too long inside Western culture. And now we think that maybe we're being a little bit oppressive if we tell our children this is fucking wrong. Or we think we're being overbearing and not liberal enough. But it's wrong. It's wrong. Pornography is not okay. It's not healthy. It's not normal. If we understand at the very least inside ourselves our own conditioning that tells us that's perfectly normal, pornography is normal. There's a conditioning in us, and then we ask where that conditioning came from. And it's the fear of not being liberal enough, which has been created by the Luciferian doctrine inside our communities and societies in the West. If we can see the foundation of that and what made us think that, we can let go of it. And if we can let go of it, we'll have no fear in telling our children outright, pornography is disgusting and you should not be using it. And we can tell our husbands and our wives, pornography is disgusting, stop using it. Instead of saying it's normal, but then never talking about it. Instead of saying it's normal, but then hiding it from each other. Instead of pretending it's normal whilst we watch it destroy our communities and our children. It's not right. If there were a tribe, imagine your child who's 13, as this lady's child was, imagine they're a bit older, 15, 16, and they want to go and volunteer somewhere in the world, but they're going to go and stay with a tribe, and that particular tribe, they perform sexual acts for each other every night, and everyone sits around and watches it. Would you let them go to that tribe? You'd say, no, we don't do that here. What's the difference with a screen? What's the difference? It's still creating the same urges and the same relationship with sex as what a voyeuristic tribes might do to a person. It's no different. If you just zoom out and look at it for what it is, and look at yourself as belonging to a tribe, and say, yeah, what tribe would allow their children to watch people have sex every night for entertainment and say it's normal? Only a tribe that's been truly deceived by its leaders. And that is the core of the message regarding pornography for me and our children. Don't accept it as normal for yourself, and then you won't accept it as normal for them. Don't accept it as societally acceptable, and then you won't accept it as something normal for them. And above all, if you want to protect them, then get the apps on there, block it, and you'll see the change in your children. Because a child's own worst enemy can be himself at times, because they don't know. And we've got a hard job, because our children are growing up in the West inside a system which is dominated by the Luciferian doctrine. It's dominated by sex, it's dominated by gluttony, it's dominated by meaningless, frivolous pursuits like alcohol and one-night stands. And it's empty and corrosive to the whole of society. But it's even more corrosive to the soul of your child when they anticipate and yearn for those things. And you better believe that that's what the society's doing to your children. They're growing up and yearning for those meaningless things. They desire those meaningless things. They don't desire a life of fulfillment. They don't desire someday to have a plot of beautiful land and raise a family there and live in nature and be in the stunning beauty that God has to offer. They desire the sports car outside the nightclub so they can pick up some drunk girl and abuse her like the man did on the porn video. And the steward of your child's subconscious is the parent. And it's up to us to block what's going in for the sake of them, for the sake of real love. Don't be passive, be strong. But first of all, before you even try, suss out inside yourself what is acceptable about pornography suss out inside yourself what made you feel that it's maybe a little bit normal for boys to be boys, as people often say. And when you do that, you'll realise that it's something very untoward, because it ain't normal. It's not normal. We don't do voyeurism when we're in a tribal setting. So why do we do voyeurism? Using technology. I think in the most part, a lot of it comes down to feeling like nobody can see you. That's why I quite like knowing that this guy is connected to God. That way my God is never hidden from me. My God is always bearing witness to me in some which way, shape or form. He's not a man in the sky far from here. His divine spark is dwelling within inside the energy of this tree and all life around me, and thus he witnesses all I do. And that's why people go to a sterile environment. That's why people don't go to nature to masturbate. They lock themselves in a room and close the curtains. They don't want a witness. But if you can remember that God is present everywhere, in all things, then you realise that a witness you have, whether you like it or not. And it's not to watch over you and say, you've done wrong. It's not like that. It's a non-judgmental witness. It's to say, hey, I see what you're doing, and I gave way for that to be part of your reality. And I can see that you're exploring, but it's not the best path for you. Because you'll achieve your dreams better by being a fully functioning human being, instead of spilling some of your most vital creative force persistently and daily in places it does not need to be spilled. So, porn, it's not okay. Let's get it out of our heads that it is. And then we can start tackling the problem for our children. Practically, use apps to block it, but more so raise them knowing that only weak humans need to use pornography, because they're admitting that they can't approach or have relations with the opposite sex without it. That's the truth. Love you all.